Kamala. They all do that. I don't know what that is. They like multitasking.
I was out coming back from the hospital with a body in the back of the hearse. It's a traffic jam on 95. It's bumper to bumper. The traffic was stopped at 2:45 in the morning. You don't believe it. They're all coming back with parties.
I saw you in the top news story.
All that stuff in the air today. Is it fog or is it
Okay.
leftovers?
Is it what?
Is it fog or leftovers from last night?
Yeah,
It was
it's
very
smoke
fog.
from,
It was.
smoke.
We started with smoke last night. The entire city was covered with fog.
I don't care about those fireworks. It's when they start firing their guns.
I was very happy that there are new tenants in the house down the street from us who were not going crazy with fireworks like we did on July 4th.
I heard in Hialeah they do that. They go outside and start firing their pistols into the air.
You're lucky if it's only in.
I got a ticket on the way to Yeshiva today.
You
serious?
did? What? Gotta be
On the
kidding.
share on car safety, you got a ticket on the way to Yeshiva?
Remember, Harvey, you have the right
No.
to remain silent.
This is the advice that you're trying to take it.
You know why? The cop
I'm
always,
just trying to get the shoe off on the right foot, you
the
know?
cop always says, first question is, do you know why I stopped you?
I'm not a mind reader.
I'm not answering any questions today. My lawyer.
That's
will
great.
answer all
Harvey, that's great.
questions.
I'm gonna have to repeat it for our home audience.
He always asks.
No,
"Do you know
no,
why I
I did.
stopped you?"
Okay.
Does he get you to admit he's
Okay. So let me begin.
cops? I think
As
that's
soon as these things work.
It's so realistic, isn't it?
It doesn't these things work.
It's resolved in an hour.
It's amazing how you found at least 2 Gemaras that deal with car driving.
Oh.
This is not.
It's also a proof that the
This
Gemara
is
does
not
time
a-
travel.
It's not a popular topic, believe me.
So good morning. Thank you everyone for coming. Today's topic, as was expressed in the pre-share discussions, is definitely not a topic that's talked about a lot, and it probably should be, is car safety a Jew's obligation? That's the title of today's share. And you know, you look around the world, look around the frum world, you know, Baruch Hashem, in today's world, many households are multiple car households. There are a lot of Jewish people driving cars, people in the world in general driving cars. That's why we have lots of traffic. But at the same time, we do know that accidents happen. Accidents do occur. And the question that I would like to deal with today is how much is car safety? In what areas does one have to be careful about halachically in terms of car safety? Really, the impetus for the shir, Harvey, you should know this, is a dear friend of mine came over to me recently, and he asked me, you know, what will I say if somebody's driving with, younger drivers and passengers in the car, even the driver of the car, are not wearing seatbelts. Look, this happens, especially amongst the younger generation. What would I say about that? So I stated my opinion, which we'll get to soon. And this person started saying, well, I don't know, this person doesn't seem to, this person says this, that person says that, this person says this. And we got a lot of, discussion. So actually, to me, I thought it was pretty clear what the answer is. But I saw that not everybody viewed it that way. So I thought, yeah, that sounds like a good area for a topic. And upon doing more research, I definitely saw that there's some lack of clarity in the whole topic. And therefore, I think it's kedai to be addressed. I do not know really of too many, I would call it mainstream shuvos that deal directly with this question. I do not believe Moshe Feinstein was ever asked this question straight up. Should someone be wearing a seatbelt?
Because no one on the east side
And
has a car.
right, right. He jokes because no one on the Lower East Side of Manhattan has a car. They all take the train. Okay, but Moshe was asked so many questions. It's interesting this wasn't on it. And again, major poskim in print, I've yet to really see this topic fully addressed. And we'll talk about it. I'm not just talking today about seatbelts. I'm going to talk about a lot of other factors with cars. For example, driving speed. Right? There's, in America, I don't know about Israel, but in America, there's a posted speed limit, everywhere you go. Now, sometimes they try to trick you. You go here and you go a mile and now they switch it and they go back and forth. Upstate New York, they're notorious for playing these games. Every little other space, a different town, and they change the speed limit and they have a cop waiting there.
Have you been to Georgia?
Huh?
Have you been to Georgia?
No.
Right, the AAA used to highlight certain towns, before the real people of the interstate, where they were notorious for passing out citations. It would go from 50 miles an hour speed limit to 25.
Really?
In one block. Yeah, and the cops would be there.
Okay, so for those listening at home, if you want to drive through Georgia, be aware they would change these things. I was just in New York. Just the adjustment you have to make. Huh?
The cameras. They don't
Right.
even need a police officer anymore. They
Right.
just put up a camera.
Now in New York, in terms of speed limit, the way they do things, they have these speed cameras, as was mentioned, but they also need, what the speed limit right now in New York is?
25.
25 miles per hour.
I mean, in the city.
In the city.
Yeah, well.
You want to drive down a regular city street, you have to go 25 miles per hour in their speed cameras. Huh? All right, good line. They say New York, yeah, hell, you should be able to go 25 miles per hour.
Listen, they have a lot of things that the government has to spend money on. They need to raise revenues.
Yes. So we have issues speeding. If a person would exceed a speed limit, would that, you say, is a Jew obligated to keep the speed limits? Could the person go above the speed limit? Is that dangerous? Is that putting yourself in a makom sakana? How do you understand that?
Or putting other people.
Putting other people. Other aspects of causing accidents. Right? And I remember you telling me about this. Stop signs. A stop sign is not a suggestion.
It's not a yield sign either.
Right?
Yeah.
A stop sign means you're supposed to take a complete stop. What happens if you take a stop sign as a suggestion, as a yield sign? Like,
This
Right?
happened to me right in front of the coal well. I was about to step off the curb into the street, and she went with her minivan right through the stop sign, with the windows open, the back, and the kids screaming, and her on the phone, right through the stop sign. If I had taken one step earlier, I would not be here today to talk about it.
okay, yes. So we've seen people blow by stop signs.
Going red without stopping.
Huh?
Right turn on red without stopping.
Right under red without stopping. Yes.
Yes.
These things can be dangerous,
Well, she
for sure.
Driving a
blew right through.
Huh?
She didn't even
I'm
slow
gonna get to
down.
that. Hold on.
Right through the stop sign.
All right, hold on.
You also need one glove.
Distracted driving. Nowadays in the world with phones, you definitely have issues of people texting during driving, definitely animated discussions on the phone, right? New York for a while, I forgot what they're up to nowadays. They were very big on cracking down on handheld phones. Here in Florida, we don't have that same law. Yes.
Yankee's father last night, he sees like teenagers driving, like speeding on their phone with blasting music. He has a button to like have like a little siren go on for like a couple seconds. Like, he'll turn it on, like he'll scare them, he'll see the cats like, looking around and put their phone down. And like whenever they go back to their phone, he'll press the siren again.
Okay, that's right. It's good to be a macher. But yeah, that's, the scare. Definitely teenagers are, as we know from the driving stats and insurance rates, are the most prone to have accidents. And really these halachas are definitely more important, and the shir is very definitely focused to people to understand the dangers of driving. We go from teenagers to go to the opposite extreme. There reaches a point sometimes that people should not be on the road. Older people that are not, driving is all about reactions, and it can reach a point that somebody's not up to driving anymore.
What age are you?
Huh?
What age are you?
Not yours. You're too young.
It's not a specific number.
But exactly, I don't think there is a set number, and it's a type of thing. What would be, let's discuss the halacha. If a person is above the capacity to drive well, would it be also for him to get into a car behind the wheel? What do we say about that?
Impaired driving.
There are all other driving laws, cutting a person off, putting a car in a place where people have to do crazy maneuvers to get around. That might include parking.
Double parking to make mincha.
Yes. My father-in-law always,
Right in the middle of the street.
my father-in-law told me, what's the definition of borough park? What's a borough park? He said when you parallel park into a double parked spot. Try that again. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Tailgating. is-
Right? Tailgating. So there's so many issues that come up in driving. What I would like to discuss today is from a halachic perspective. According to the Torah law, is a Jew obligated in these areas, seatbelts, driving speed, stop signs, or other traffic laws, distracted driving, too old, are these things which we would say there's an obligation to keep, or just view it, no, not necessarily. These, granted, there's, it's like jaywalking, right? Now you say, Rebbe, of course, jaywalking is also dangerous. Going to walk in the middle of the street. Okay, but it's a type of thing. Yeah, New York doesn't have a jaywalking. We'll get big money from that. It's a law in the books. Obviously, there are circumstances. Somebody walks in the middle of a busy street. It's dangerous. It kills them.
There are people,
Queens Boulevard.
There are people coming down from New York who on a regular basis do that. Certain groups of people running straight down the middle of the street.
You stop talking about walking in the middle of the street, all the time.
That's the
Right. Do not go risk the sidewalks.
Right.
It's the
Right.
vinegar.
But yes, so look, there are certain things which might be, officially prohibited, but if it's done safely, it's understood. There's no one there. You didn't wait to the crosswalk. You walked in the middle. To say that's usher, it's not so simple.
What about Hilul Hashem?
Oh, we're going to talk about that too. Excellent point.
Rabbi Shapiro would say, fasten your seatbelt for the rest of the shoot.
Too good of a line. They quoted Rabbi Shapiro's "Fasten your seatbelt for the rest of the show." Now, I'll tell you, I believe a lot of this,
There's no seatbelt.
a lot of these shilohs, we gave a share a few years ago about masks, but a lot of these shilas, I really think the way, and this is true about a lot of the issues in halacha, especially things which there is not so much clear material of where to start, is how do you go about, what's your givens, what's your hanachas, how do you do the halacha to begin with, what's your approach? And I discussed this topic with multiple people, and I'll tell you one approach that I was met by. I would come to this topic, and people said, well, look at the stats. How frequent are car accidents? What are the odds you're going to get into a car accident? What are the odds you're going to get into a dangerous car accident? Let's first start with the seatbelt check. Okay? I think that's the easiest one to begin with. What are the odds you're going to get into a car accident? The odds it's going to be a dangerous car accident, would be bodily harm, versus a little fender bender. And somebody sat there, actually an actuary,
Oh, yeah,
putting in the numbers.
absolutely. Yeah.
If you put in the numbers, at least the way this guy did it, the odds of you in particular getting to an accident are what we would call absolutely minimal. Minimal. Granted, there are a lot of car accidents across America. I just punched in those stats this morning.
There's a lot of personal
Every minute in America, there's a car accident. What'd you say?
There's a lot of personal injury lawyers. The statistic that I saw is that the average driver will get into 2 serious car accidents in his entire career of driving. Now, serious means putting people in the hospital, okay? It depends on what you're driving. If you're riding a motorcycle, your chances of dying
Oh, that's a very good point.
are exponentially higher than your chances of dying driving a car are very minimal. It's like 3,000% more likely to die if you are driving a motorcycle than or riding on the
Okay,
back.
that's a very excellent point,
Yeah.
right? That I didn't bring up yet in the topics that we're going to talk about, the differences between cars, difference between vehicles. You're bringing up, when we talk about the stats of danger in car crashes, it goes up exponentially if you're on a motorcycle,
Oh, yeah.
for sure. So yes, that's a very good point. But back to the stats that you know, right? So you said the average person gets into 2 serious car accidents in a
his
lifetime.
entire career.
Right.
You can't look at the stats, because if you never get in an accident, your stat is 0. If you get into a serious
No,
accident,
that's-
it's 100%.
No. All statistics
the
tell
first
you
one
is the
is-
probability of something happening. It doesn't tell you whether it's going to happen to you or not. It's like if I smoke cigarettes, let's say there's a 50% chance I'm going to get lung cancer, okay?
While you're
That's not up
driving,
to you.
No, but that doesn't mean, it doesn't predict whether or not you're going to get it. Okay? It just shows the probabilities, okay?
Yes.
okay.
Now, in terms of the stats, so it could be if you just analyze the numbers, there are those that will argue, look, it's something which is minimal. The chances of such a thing like that are slim. And therefore, the halacha would dictate that one does not have to, there's no chiyuv for one to wear a seatbelt. One might make such an argument. You just look at the stats alone. The stats are minimal. Now, I didn't come across, till you said it here, that stat of 2 serious injuries per lifetime. That's what I was kosher.
We're going to be over 60 years of driving or something
Right.
like that. Yeah.
So, to me, that also becomes like a different way to qualify it. Like, are you judging every act of driving unto itself, or the broader picture? See, I think also with seatbelts, there's an issue of a regilas, of getting accustomed to wearing a seatbelt. You know, it'd be very hard to say, well, right now I'm getting into a situation where the odds of me getting into an accident are slim. There's no one on the road. So, in this case, I don't have to wear a seatbelt. But later, where there's more of a chance that we're putting the seatbelt. That's not how people work. Either you put in the seatbelt, or you don't put in the seatbelt. You get used to it. So you get used to not wearing a seatbelt, you're not going to put one on. Yes.
But if it'll enhance your chances of being safe, don't you have kid which want to yes, not just
Oh, so I want to get to that.
Let me ask this question.
Yes.
Don't we have an obligation to follow the law?
Oh, yes. Right? Very good point. I'm going to get to that also in a moment.
You also, are these statistics taking into account what are my chances of getting into an accident and my chances of getting injured? Or is it taking into
It's
account
everybody.
my chance of getting into an accident and somebody else getting?
Right, that's what you brought before. Yeah, I assume it's taking both of those
Yeah,
stats.
Because in terms of the halacha, I
Right,
would assume that so I choose not to wear seatbelts and I get into and I lose control of my car and I'm flying all over the car and I can't control my car anymore because I'm not wearing a seatbelt, and then I injure somebody else. So that has a similar impact in
correct.
terms of the halacha.
Right, no pun intended.
The reason
Yes.
that you're required to wear a seatbelt is to protect you, not the other driver. Okay, society says we want to limit the expenses of these crashes. Okay, they're not accidents, they're crashes. Accident implies that nobody's responsible for it.
Now you're talking like a lawyer, Ed.
These are
I'm
on
not talking
purpose.
like a lawyer. Absolutely, people are responsible for these crashes.
Accidents don't
They're
happen.
not, they just don't happen in a vacuum. Okay, that's the whole thing. If you think that everything that happens in this world is the Ratzon Hashem, then why follow any traffic laws? Because
Right, we have to
whatever
do our
happens
shopping.
is our shirt.
Right.
So what am I? It would happen anyway, whether I followed these traffic. I know some guy, a Hasidic guy in shul, bragging about driving 100 miles an hour on I-95.
So I'm going to get to.
Bragging about it. I have a
I know
radar.
another civic guy who does that too.
I have a radar detector, you know, and I can ride 100 miles an hour on I-95.
Yeah,
Right here, if you're gonna combine the stats over the course of a lifetime,
they're watching this and they're coming in. This is how
if
heated
you're
it
gonna
is.
combine stats over the course of a lifetime, you should never be much again into the car with a seatbelt or without a seatbelt. Because if you're gonna go with the stats that at some point in your life you're gonna get into a serious car accident, which doesn't mean that you're gonna be seriously injured. I mean, someone in a car accident will be seriously injured, but then it should be us or Cloud. If you're gonna go over the course of life, driving is is an action that's most likely gonna result in a serious injury. So that should be the stamas. We have to be donning it on each individual time, in which case, I should never have to wear a seatbelt.
Okay, very interesting point.
They
Right.
don't know when the crash is going to occur.
Avram Eliezer's bringing up.
It doesn't make you can't
Right,
separate
I'm
the seatbelt
debating.
from the crash. You can't separate the seatbelt from the crash. If I get into the car knowing that I'm getting into a crash, you wouldn't be allowed to get into the car with a seatbelt or without a seatbelt. So if I don't care that I might get into the car with a car for my lifetime, then if I'm expecting to get into the crash, or I'm cheshboning in my allowed to get into the car is the crash, then I'm not allowed to get into the car.
Well,
Excellent point.
What's wrong
Right.
with that analogy?
No, that
Let me
Talking about
touch, just
Right.
one moment, a minute. If you have to go 10 miles to get somewhere, you're not gonna walk, okay? You're gonna get into a car. Now, if there's a certain amount of risk that you're going to undertake, no matter what, okay? We all assume a certain amount of risk in life. We get out of bed in the morning, okay? If we didn't want to accept any risk at all, we'd stay in bed, okay?
We're still the only
So hold on.
we're allowed to do risk.
So what was brought up,
Wait.
let me summarize. This is Kanata right? Alan, you're right. This share really got people. Right? Now hold on. What was brought up is, are we looking big picture or small picture? In the big picture of things, yeah, the odds are, unfortunately, that over the course of a lifetime, people are going to get into accidents. If you look at each individual case, well, each time the chances are minimal. So how do you view it? Small picture, big picture. So someone was arguing that you have to look at the small picture, because then how do you get in the car to begin with? Now, for sure, we would grant, let's say a person's small picture, right now, a person's intoxicated. Right? So that means, right, over the legal limit, we had a couple shots, it was a geschmack bar mitzvah, couple shots,
Just had a couple of beers.
and no shots, good stuff. And it's a certain degree dangerous for him to drive. We would understand in that situation exactly what Avram Eliezer argued. No, in this case, you can't get into a car. There for sure are circumstances. A person's very tired, which people don't take into account well. Person's driving, from Florida to New York, you could get tired on this. A tired driving is, I think the stats are even worse than driving while intoxicated. So you have these situations. There could be for sure a case where right now I can't get into the car. It's too dangerous. But how do you view it? Big picture, small picture, not so simple. So hold on. There's a lot of comments, a lot of things. I want to present. Let me present a couple more stats, and then I want to delve into one topic in halacha, which I think will address what Eliezer said, what others said. I saw an interesting stat, which I'm not sure how fully they explain it. Is the world today, cars are quote unquote safer than they ever were before. Now, I'm not sure why they say that. It's not because of the airbags and they're testing more, whatever that is. But they say the fatality rate at the same time is also going up. So it could be the effects of distracted driving are more today than they ever were before. It could be the level of drivers, the Niskat Adoros. People are wimpier. People can't focus anymore, right? As a teacher, in the classroom, the amount of focus is definitely dropped over the ages. And to sit in the car, especially do a longer drive, requires focus. Even without the distracted, on the phone, just simple attention span, right? Oh, there's a car in front of you. And again, I don't want to get religious, but this is a topic. I didn't go to the Asbury Press for this.
Asbury Park. Right?
Yes, but in the Jewish world, it's quite aware.
Lakewood has the worst drivers.
That in Lakewood, New Jersey, it's a known issue that people are discussing, that the traffic accidents in Lakewood are definitely more per capita than other sizable areas in New Jersey.
That's because everybody's from
And
Brooklyn.
blame it on Brooklyn, right? Now, probably in Lakewood, part of it is
That's Hillel Hashem.
The roads are never made. The infrastructure is way below where it should be holding for a city of that magnitude, and there's a lot of catch-up that needs to be done, from an infrastructure standpoint. But practically speaking, there are a crazy amount of accidents. There are people now keeping track of these. Every single one, it's a big issue. So I think, although the tshuvas, again, haven't been written on this topic, I do think it's a very, very important topic to be addressed, and from all aspects, from seatbelts to driving speed to keeping the laws. How do we go about all these things? So I first want to address, let's go seatbelts, then we'll go to other parts. So there's two interesting Gemaras. Perhaps maybe you would say these Gemaras are in stereo. There's Shiloh, which one to do first? I'll do the Gemara in Shabbos. There's a Gemara in Shabbos, I'm skipping to the middle of the piece, this is actually quoted in another sefer, that Rabbi Yanai warned people they shouldn't pass under a bridge which is not so well maintained, because a person shouldn't put himself in a Malkam Sakana. Because a person who goes through a Malkam Sakana, even if he emerges unscathed, the Gemara says, Menakin lo min zichiyosov. It takes away from his merits. If you're in a dangerous situation, a Malkam Sakana, and even if you emerge okay, you put yourself in a Malkam Sakana, then that's quite a bad thing. It takes away from your merits. And the Gemara says, for sure, a faulty bridge. The Gemara says, Bevada ina begeder sakana krova. You wouldn't say that's vada going to happen. If a bridge is shaky, You know, when the building inspectors say it's not safe, does that mean it's going to for sure fall down if you walk across it? No. If I'm being chased by somebody, can I go into such a thing? Yeah. It's not vadai sakana. It's sakana rechoka. He wants to bring a raya. But nevertheless, it seems from this Gemara that even something which is a sakana rechoka, a far off sakana, would still be usher. And in general, we say the concept chamira sakanta misura. If we're just talking about an isser, is this piece of meat tray for kosher? Okay, so then we have halachas, rov, chazakas, all these different factors to figure out if something's permissible. But when it comes to sakana, the general rule is that chamira sakanta misura. When it comes to the potential of hurting a person of sakana, then we go to the nth degree. And they bring down here the efshar shel zeh koyv nishmartem al nafsho seichem. The pasuk that we titled the shir, mentioned before. Demari mishmiri yisera shel yamud b'malkam shum sakana, av sakana rechoka yishum chamira sakanta. So even something which statistically is far off, that still might be governed by a halacha of nishmartem al nafsho seichem. Nishmartem al nafsho seichem says that a person has to be careful about the situations they're in, even if it's a far off sakana. Now let me just contrast. There's a Gemara though in Bava Metzia, Kuf Yud Beis, where the Gemara darshans a pasuk ve'elav who knows it's nafsho, or a second pshat, is a more famous pshat, is a person not paying a worker on time. But he says, why you have a case of a person who's putting himself in challenging situations. He's a window washer on skyscrapers.
So that's to make a living.
He's going up. Why is a person putting himself in a case of, he can get killed by working for the NYPD.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So the Gemara says, scharo isn't because of the fact that people do these things for their schar. And the mashmos of the Gemara is that such a thing is permitted. The Gemara is describing, hey, people, what do? They put themselves in dangerous situations to earn a living. And the Gemara takes for granted that that will be allowed. How do we reconcile this Gemara with the idea that the Shmartim al Nafsh Seichem says you have to be careful and take yourself out of a makom sakana? Don't put yourself in a makom sakana. Well, it looks like when it comes to parnasa, there's some heter to do it, right? So then I don't get it. For other isurim in the Torah, if something's aser, there's no heter for parnasa, right? Basar v'cholav is aser. Okay, it's specifically an iser of anah. But other things, right? Something's aser, it's aser. We don't usually give a heter for parnasa. Geneva's aser, but I can make money on it, right? There's no heter for parnasa. So how come over here, if it's a makom sakana, there's a heter for parnasa? So I would like to show you how the Noda B'Yehuda understands this Gemara. Noda B'Yehuda says, and it's a fascinating tshuva. He writes, even though the pasuk said, "Nishmartem al nafsho seichem," but when a person does it for parnasa, the Torah permitted it. And he refers to this Gemara. So if there's a tzorich of parnasa. Rav Moshe Feinstein has a tshuva. I have it here on the sheets too. Rav Moshe says it's mutter for a dvar mitzvah. It's not specifically limited to parnasa. It's what you call for a tzorich, for a need. Including in needs, just like putting money on the table, but also to do a mitzvah. one would be allowed to put oneself in some degree of a makom sakana. But the Noda B'Yehuda finishes off, your main intention is not for parnasa. We're talking about a case of a hunter, famous tshuva in the Noda B'Yehuda. You want to go hunting. It's not your parnasa, it's for kicks. You get game.
Shoot the animal.
Yeah. Hareza over Arm Nishmartim Ma'od Nafshal Seichem. Noda B'Yehuda says you're violating Nishmartim Ma'od Nafshal Seichem. Quotes the Rambam in Hilchos Rotzeach that brings the Gemara that we just said. V'chein also Adam Laver Tachas Kir Natoy. Person has to be careful not to be under, excuse the word kir, under a dangerous wall. V'chein Kol K'yotzev Zeh. The Elu V'shar Sakanos Asar Laver B'Koma. These and other sakanas is usher to pass. So the Noda B'Yehuda is qualifying that look. Granted, there's an Isser in Shmart Mol Navshar Seichem, but that's where it gets a little bit tricky. If there is a tzarich, then there would be a heter to put oneself. Sounds like in a makom sakana. Now, does that mean a case where there's a very good odds the person is going to die? That's hard to hear. That the heter for parnasa would be, we're talking about a chance, right? I would say, I don't want to pass on the Shiloh, but a person's security guard, a person who works for a police department, that's dangerous. A fireman, there are jobs, soldier,
Yes.
which are dangerous jobs.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, a teacher in the inner city, yes. Right? I had a teacher who was able to write backwards because he never would turn his back. Literally, mom would write backwards because,
Combat
Yeah.
zone.
it's a combat zone.
Yeah.
But the Noda B'Yehuda is giving us a qualification that there is a heter on Nishmartim Ol Nafshal Seichem in certain circumstances for Parnasa, for Tzarech Mitzvah, for others. Now, at the same time, what I would point out over here is Lamaisa, the starting point is, and that's what seems from the Gemara, and the Noda B'Yehuda debates that too, where there's no tzarech, it'll be also hunting. This tshuva of Noda B'Yehuda we talk about today too, right? I don't know what the stats are in hunting, but I don't know that is it such a a very strong number chance of a person dying just because they're going hunting? No, I don't think it
Somebody
changes.
else, though?
Huh?
Somebody else, yes.
No.
You
I'm
see
not sure.
somebody else in a yellow jacket, an orange jacket, running around. You're shooting at things
Okay.
that move.
But again, I'm talking the general stats of people dying in hunting expeditions.
The statistics on that, you can look at.
Right.
Yes. Very few people are killed,
Right. But it's sad, but the Noda B'Yehuda is still ready to say, even though, right, even though it's not statistically so strong, I would say it's probably still together a sakana recholka. It's a more far-fetched sakana. Yet the Noda B'Yehuda is saying if there's no tzarech, then that will be also. Now, what I would therefore think is when it comes to putting on a seatbelt, so really the whole question to begin with is a little silly. Just put on a seatbelt, what's the big deal? I don't like the way it feels when I have a seatbelt on. Like, what's the question? Just put one on. And especially if you deal with Dina de Malchusa Dina, the country law is you have to wear a seatbelt. Then of course, every driver should be wearing a seatbelt. When they asked me this question, I thought it was Pashut. Dina Malchusa Dina says everyone has to wear a seatbelt. It says not just the driver, anyone in the car. The driver's responsible for anyone in the car. If the cop pulls you over, you, the driver, would get a ticket. So really, yeah, if you get into a car, especially if you're the driver, you should have a responsibility to make sure everyone in your car is wearing a seatbelt. That's simple. What's a tzad not to? Right? It's okay. Teenagers don't want to wear these things, and there's peer pressure. I want to get into a fight. It doesn't sound like a real strong justification.
By the way, law in Florida is only the people in the front seat have to wear a
Right.
seatbelt.
Really?
Not the ones in the
Yeah?
back seat.
That's very interesting. Okay.
So,
Now, Lamaisa, I would think that putting on a seatbelt would be together in Shmartem Ol Nafsho Seichel. There's for sure some, at least Chash Rachok, that something might happen. Even though in this particular case, maybe not. It's a miyata miyuta. But okay, but when it comes to Sakanta Misura, no to Biyuda said when it comes to hunting, if you don't have a valid reason, it should be also. Someone just told me, moments before I walked into the share, that they're with an Adam Chashav, and he was sick. And I don't know the exact circumstances. I don't know if he was sitting in the front seat or the back seats, right? But he was not well, and he was not able to put on the seatbelt. And he told the driver, please excuse me, and he quoted a certain Rav, I have a heter from this Rav, not to wear a seatbelt in my circumstance. Okay? I can hear that. Maybe that's a tzarech. Right? If it's a chash rachak, the Noda B'Yehuda says if there's a tzarech, you have to go somewhere. You can't walk. It's a tzarech mitzvah. In your particular case, which is a weird case, you don't have too many cases like that. Well, let's say the person can't move his body in this, okay, he can't put on the seatbelt. Put him in the back seat. New York, in Florida, he'd be okay even. From Dina to Malchus Dina. But other than that, I would think that there would be a chiyuv, also mishmartem nafshel seichan. I've heard a couple Rabbanim quoted as this, but I'm surprised there aren't more. To me, I think it's pashut. I don't think it's, from discussions, I don't think it's pashut. I take back that one. But from this known to be Yehuda, if the way we're setting up the sugya, that Chamir Sakanta Misur, there is such an idea like that, that'll be an issue. Speeding. Again, I found that someone asked a shaila to Rav Scheinberg. So Scheinberg said, look, to go a little bit over the speed limit, that's expected. When they say the speed limit 55, if you do 65, they're not going to really get you. But to go 75 in a 55 zone, that's more dangerous.
If you go 10 miles an hour over the speed limit, if the cop is there and with his radar, you will get a ticket.
Right. Okay,
but
under 10.
Under 10 miles
Right.
an hour, they usually don't want to punish you with that.
So Rav Scheinberg said these things are usher from Din and Malchus Adina. Now, I don't know how much I can rely on this quote. Did he say specifically Din and Malchus Adina, not in the Shmartem Ol Nafshel Seichem? Seemingly, I would have thought this is also included in the Shmartem Ol Nafshel Seichem. What about texting, distracted driving? Again, so I spoke with the posting just this morning, and he was arguing, even if you'll say that wearing a seatbelt is not an absolute chiyuv of the Shmartem Nafshel Seichem, but it wouldn't be an isser not to wear a seatbelt. But he would say, to actively do something dangerous, like really speeding, going 100 miles per hour, like distracted driving, blowing through stop signs without looking. Those things are really, really dangerous. And that's something that would be awesome. This week's Parsha, we have Yaakov Avinu, Yosef, when he reveals himself to the brothers going back to Yaakov. Yosef tells him, Al tir guzu b'derech. Don't get too involved in learning while you're driving. Someone just told me before, I was blown away by it. Shmuel Birnbaum was known as a tremendous masman. He would learn 20 all the time, and especially when he traveled. He was famous on airplanes. He'd go up and down the roads, talk to people and learning. But someone just told me their father drove with Shmuel Birnbaum, and he said he refused to talk to the driver in learning while he drove. And he said it might even been years ago, he got into an accident maybe with someone driving, and he was makbid on that halacha, al tir guzu b'derech. He refused to talk, he was always talking and learning, but he refused when he was driving with somebody not to distract the driver by talking and learning. That's what Shmuel Birnbaum did. Years ago, my grandfather of Shmuel Neumann asked a Shaila to Rav Moshe about cars and about a person's going to could get any size type of car that he can get possible. There's a choice between two cars. You could get what we call a mini, a smaller car, or you could get a bigger car. The Lashon, right? Rachmil is a heavy car. Rav Moshe Feinstein says, yes, I agree with 100%. A person has a choice of two cars. He should get a bigger car, which could greater withstand the impact of a collision, versus getting a small car.
I just want to know if this is the one with the glove.
Yeah, there's such a thing. You know, people debate. There's an idea of Shomer B'Sayim Hashem, that Hashem protects even fools. And can you rely on something, especially where it's something that many people do? People argue maybe, there are many people that don't wear seatbelts, many people that go through stop signs, and maybe you can rely on Shomer B'Sayim Hashem. Not so simple. I found the Binyan Tzion, the Aruch LaNer, says that that only applies to hezek, which happens over time. Eat too much sweets, I'm going to be in trouble, 20 years from now. Maybe you can rely on Shomer B'Sayim Hashem. That's what other people do too. But something which the accident can happen right now, according to Binyan Tzion, you wouldn't have Shomer B'Sayim Hashem in that case. So just to conclude, it's definitely advisable, according to everybody, that a Jew, and for sure if you add on the element of Chil Hashem, my friend I know talks about this topic all the time, Jews and driving. And unfortunately there could be a lot of Chil Hashems, and think of my own, no.
The Goyim do watch
Right.
what we do.
The Goyim watch what you do, and Jews who cut off other drivers, park in an inconsiderate way, but even the speeding, the stop signs, all these types of talking on the phone, right? People definitely have to be careful with Chil Hashem. But besides that, what we debated today in Shir is there an Isser for one not to obey these laws? Are you violating the Shmartem Nafshosechem? In doing such, we saw that there is room with Tzarech Parnasa, with Tzarech Mitzvah. There are Tzarechim which these halachas might be malleable, flexible, but at the same time, we're at all available. Normal circumstances, people should be very, very careful in driving. And Bezra, with that schus, there just was this picture, this video going around where Rav Nemitzel from Eretz Yisrael, very chashav Talmid Chacham, who was in a car crash. The airbags went off, and he was sitting and learning. He was the passenger.
Not the driver.
Like nothing happened. We all need schusim. I'm sure the schus of him being in that car learning, was a big schus. It wasn't the airbags that saved him.
They found him inside the airbags. Wasn't driving anymore anyway.
Right.
Whoever was driving. Exactly.
Right. But Be'ezus Hashem, we should all be careful. And the schus of learning these halachas, learning the sugya, should be a schus for all of us and our families, that we avoid at all costs such accidents. Thank you very much for listening. Have a wonderful week.
A few of us actually ran into Rav Nemitzel in the old city.
Really?
He was in a golf cart.
Okay.
So I'm gonna
Yes.
step into something. I'm gonna ask you if you would. That's still on.
This one, good shot. 1 second.